Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 175, Rheneas and the Risky Rendezvous. The Skarloey Railway was preparing for another day of hard work when Sir Handel puffed in with some grave news. "Fair warning to all," he said. "Gordon told me this morning that the railway inspector is planning on visiting again later today." The engines groaned in unison. "He comes here nearly every other day," said Peter Sam crossly. "You'd think he has nothing to do." "From what I've heard," chided Skarloey, "he doesn't have much to do since he was caught sneaking around the Ulfstead project." "So he comes to our line and bugs us instead?" retorted Peter Sam. "We should feel lucky," interrupted Rusty. "That railway inspector has been quite cruel to Sir Topham Hatt's engines. At least when he comes to take a look at us, he has nothing but high praise for our railway." Duncan wasn't convinced. "You're only saying that because you're a diesel. He loves diesels. If he had it his way, he'd ship us all off to the scrapyard and buy 100 of your Rusties to replace us." Just then, Mavis rolled in with some quarry cars. "I better not hear any complaining from you small ones," she said strictly. "You don't know how much trouble he's caused the rest of us who have to deal with his antics every day." "Oh, no complaining at all," murmured Duncan. "You hear that, Peter Sam? No complaining from ya." Peter Sam rolled his eyes. "Oh dear, here he comes," said Skarloey. The railway inspector walked up and faced the narrow-gauge engines. They could tell that he wasn't in a good mood. "Righto, let's get started. You there, take me to the top of the mountain pass. I need some fresh air to clear the headache I received from all of this steam." The engines looked at each other. "This wouldn't be a problem if you were all diesels," he muttered. "Like this one. Hello, Dusty?" It's Rusty, sir." "Crusty!" shouted the inspector. "Actually, never mind," murmured Rusty. The railway inspector stepped into Sir Handel's coach and the two were soon off. "That was strange," murmured Peter Sam. "No compliments from the railway inspector this time," agreed Skarloey. "His affection has worn out on us," grumbled Duncan. Mavis chuckled. "About time you joined the rest of the island in the misery," she smiled, and the railway inspector was indeed in a foul mood. When Sir Handel reached the top of the hill, he got out to stretch his legs. "Blasted railway," he muttered. "If Sir Fat Hat would only mind his own manners and stop getting suspicious. Oh dear, my head still hurts from that fall at the construction site." Sir Handel was getting impatient. "I have trucks to take at the incline," he whistled. "I'll take my time," retorted the inspector. "You know, I have the power to write a review so horrible." We know, grunted Sir Handel. "If you were actually serious about writing that horrible review you always mention, you would get it done and move on to the next railway and leave us alone." The railway inspector was cross at Sir Handel's tone. "You watch your mouth, Eagle," he commanded. "Eagle," grunted Sir Handel. "That's not my name." "But it was your first name," said the inspector. "You were named after some bird, if I recall." "Yes, a falcon," he shouted. "There's a huge difference." "Oh well," said the inspector. "They should have called you Vulture with that attitude." Sir Handel finally snapped at the disrespect. He quickly sped down the hill and left the inspector at the top. "Lousy steam engines," he muttered. "This is certainly going on my review." Back at the incline, Duncan and Rheneas were working hard when Sir Handel puffed in. "Where's the inspector?" asked Rheneas. "I left him at the top of the hill," said Sir Handel crossly. "You what?" cried the engines. "You can't be serious," wheezed Duncan. "I know you don't like him, but you can't just leave him wherever you please." "What were you thinking, Sir Handel?" asked Rheneas. "You're going to get in big trouble." "The whole railway's going to get into trouble," agreed Madge. "Sir Handel, you have to go set things right." "I won't," he persisted. "That man called me names. He said I was a vulture." Duncan and Madge quietly giggled. "It's not funny," he shouted crossly. Rheneas sighed. "Fine, I'll go see what I can do." He picked up an empty slate car and set off for the top of the hill. Just then Paxton rolled in with Sir Topham Hatt on board. "Oh, Sir Handel," he said happily. "Well done on taking the inspector around the railway today. How did he like the climb to the top of the hill?" Sir Handel let off steam uncomfortably. "Oh, I don't think he liked it as much as you think, sir." Rheneas slowly worked his way to the top where the inspector was waiting impatiently. "Hello, Mr. Inspector," said Rheneas calmly. "I've come to take you back down."
"Oh, really?" said the inspector. "How surprising! I thought I was stuck up here forever on this blasted hill. I'm going to have a word with Mam Handel or whatever his name is."
"My apologies," said Rheneas. "Let's get you back down to the quarry."
"Oh, no," said the railway inspector strictly. "I will not ride in the cab of a steam engine. They are filthy and vile."
Rheneas ignored the rude comment. "That's why I brought this slate truck. I know it's not luxurious, but all of our coaches are in use right now." The railway inspector laughed.
"You expect me to sit in that piece of rubbish? Dear me, I would rather stay up top here for a month than do that."
Rheneas was growing uncomfortable. The track beneath him seemed oddly unstable, and he figured it was because he had been standing still for so long. "Let's go, Mr. Inspector," he said quickly. "You can speak to Sir Topham Hatt when we arrive safely back down." But the inspector refused to move and pulled out his clipboard.
"I'm staying here and starting on my review," he said, smiling. "Chapter 1. How I was left stranded in the mountains of Sodor for the second time in recent months."
Suddenly, the mountain began to rumble as snow tumbled off the side. The track began to shake uncontrollably. "It's an avalanche!" cried Rheneas.
"An avalanche in September?" asked the inspector. "Impossible!"
Rheneas realized he was out of time. As soon as there was a break in the shaking, he lunged forward with the car and scooped the inspector off his feet. The two raced down the hill and eventually made their way back to the quarry where the engines were waiting.
"What was that for?" shouted the inspector. "You nearly ran me over."
"I was protecting you," argued Rheneas. "What I did was risky, and you should be thanking me. Your loud voice triggered that snowfall, and I barely got us out safely."
"I'll have you all scrapped, that's for sure," shouted the inspector. "Starting with you, for leaving me up there in the first place."
Sir Topham Hatt was appalled. "Mr. Railway Inspector, I apologize for the incident today, but Rheneas was only doing what was right. I just sent Freddy to inspect the tracks for avalanche damage, and he should be back soon."
"No need to. I don't want to hear the result. That's the final straw for me, Topham, and your railway is through for. I'll be submitting my review tomorrow and leaving shortly thereafter."
And the inspector walked quickly away. Sir Handel and Rheneas both felt terrible about their actions. "It's not your fault," insisted Sir Topham Hatt. "That man is a cruel one, and there's simply no way to please him. Get some rest, everyone. We have a long few days ahead of us." The engines were silent. "We did our best," murmured Skarloey. "We were nice to the inspector and catered to his every need. Even some of the most patient engines I've been around couldn't stand his attitude any longer. Cheer up, my dear companions." The Skarloey engines were very sad. What had started out as a promising day had quickly turned sour, and the review everyone had been dreading was finally on its way.